Hello YouTube, it's your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you again with another YouTube video. And the title of this video is called Passport Bros Say Bye to South Korea. Korean women boycott men with the four no's. No dating, no sex, no babies, and no marriage. And the way this video came about was I was watching the African Diaspora channel, which is associated with there's a show called The Phil Scott Show, and he talks about like a lot of men's issues and that kind of thing. So anyway, an interesting video that popped up was a video in which they were talking about in South Korea. There is a very big feminist group there called the 4Bs. And what this group is there's a group of women who have vowed never to again to cater to men. They're boycotting men in marriage. They said they're not gonna have any more babies. They're not gonna do any more dating. And the reasons for this is because they say that it doesn't really benefit the women. In fact, as I was reading the article associated with this group, they were saying that North Korea 65% of women do not want children. 65%. They saw it as a burden. They didn't see a lot of benefits to it. They felt that women don't get the praise and accolades, excuse me, of being a mother. And then they also tried to cite that about 40% of women in marriages or something like that were like physically abused or something like that. So anyway, they've been really pushing for this hard. They've been trying to get policies put in place. And the thing that's so bad about this whole situation is that for the third year in a row, South Korea has had the lowest fertility rate of all countries, which is very shocking. And I say that because I did hear about feminism growing there, but I didn't know it got this bad. And the other problem with this is with them not having so many babies, they're saying that it's putting a huge strain on like the elderly and those who work like non-traditional jobs, like part-time, like some foreign workers and that kind of thing. And the other thing is because people would say, well, why don't these people just kind of work until unfortunately they pass away? But the thing is, a lot of those jobs have pensions associated with it. And from what I read, by the time they turn 50, they have to it's very difficult for them to keep a job because their pay rate is so high that the companies no longer want to pay it. So majority of them wind up having to retire at age 50. And in many cases, they don't have enough money to sustain themselves, for the rest of their lives. So a lot of the elderly wind up struggling there. I think they were saying it was like a huge number. And don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was around maybe like 60% of like the elderly were like struggling to get by, that kind of thing. So, yeah, so I kind of wanted to go a little deeper on this, and I just thought it was very interesting because, in my personal opinion, this is like foreshadowing of what could potentially happen in the United States. It's just very, very bad, And here's the thing: some people will try to say, "Will feminism work out? Like, what is their end game? Like, what are they trying to achieve?" And basically, what they're trying to say is that their end goal is to try to make it where women can be more independent. They'll have just as much power as men. They'll end like the wage gap. The politicians will listen to them. And all these things, even to the point where they're trying to tell women that they need to save up since they feel like the men are not really going to support them and that kind of thing. But the problem with this is, and this kind of goes to some of my older videos. I had a video addressing, will feminism spread throughout the world? Will it ruin the women in other countries and that kind of thing? And here's the thing. And I'm going to tell you the end goal of this whole situation. So here's the thing. For feminism to work, you have to have funding behind it. You got to have policies. You got to have people to believe in it and be willing to support it. Just writing down a policy and, just writing down a policy or passing a law is not enough. You need enforcement as well. So even though you have these groups here, I don't think this movement is going to last very long, for the simple fact that as I said before, as you see the population, they don't have replacement level population. So what that means is they're going to have to get bring in a lot of foreigners. And particularly what they're probably going to do is bring in foreigners that have lots of children and have those people kind of migrate and come to the country to kind of make up the job force. So that's one thing. So here's the other thing. Let's just say that worst case scenario, the women in that country, they're going wild. They don't even want foreigners to come in with their babies. They want to really, really push this whole feminism thing. Let me show you how this is going to wind up collapsing. So first off, since these women are not going to be having children, when they reach the age of about 50 or so, majority of them, they're all not going to have the money to necessarily support themselves. They even talk about how some of these women now are living with their parents. Living in very bad, we will say ghetto type areas where there's lots of crime and that kind of thing. So they're already not living well, So that being said, they're not going to have a whole lot to live on past the time they're 50. Keep in mind that even then, when they get elderly and they get to a point where they can't really take care of themselves, that's going to put pressure on the government to try to support them. And the thing is, if they're already at a strain right now because they don't have replacement level workers, what they're going to have to do is pretty much increase the taxes on everybody. What's going to happen is over a period of time, the taxes are going to get so great that they're not going to have their money's not going to go as far as it used to, because they're going to be paying so much in taxes to support everybody. This is going to put a strain on not just the men, but the women as well. And I believe at some point, even the women are going to start complaining about this, and all it's really going to do is force the men to do like we do in the United States, which is to look outside the country for like wives and girlfriends and that kind of thing. And Korea is right in that area, Southeast, that area around Southeast Asia where they can easily just go to the Philippines, or they can go to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. They can go all around that area. So it's not going to stop the men from having wives, because they think it's going to supposedly, I guess this is their way about fighting back against the quote unquote misogyny of the men there, because they're saying that the men there are so unbearable and, all that kind of thing. So basically what I'm trying to say is, at some point, if they don't have replacement level workers and they have their money is not, the wages are not going as far as it should be because they have to pay so much in taxes, that's just going to force a lot of poverty on people. So people are going to start being impoverished. And what starts to happen when countries and places start to be impoverished, there's going to be lots of crime. There's going to be lots of violence. To add to that, think of the fact of all these shootings we have, especially from single men who are complaining about women and that kind of thing. You're going to start to see a whole lot of that in Korea. And I want to say, and I might be wrong about this, but I want to say that Korea was one of those countries that had a very high suicide rate. So all you're going to start seeing is unfortunately, a lot of male, rebelling, dropping out of the work market. Even here in the United States, they said a lot of men are kind of dropping out of the work market. And that's because a lot of them feel like it's not really worth it. Like, why would I go to work 20, 30 years just to get married and have this woman take away all my stuff? So if you're in Korea and the women say they don't want to date you, and you can't get a date, you can't get a baby, they're not doing all this stuff, that's going to mess with a lot of the men's psyche there. Like, because at that point, what is the purpose of them even working? If they can't have dates, they can't build families, they don't want to grow alone, it's just going to cause a lot of issues, and you're going to see a lot of men starting to act out and do a lot of crazy things. Now, I'm not advocating those men to do anything, nor do I approve of it, but that's going to be a side effect. We're already seeing that in the United States. With them really pushing this and trying to make it like a vow they're going to do it, it's just going to spiral things out of control, which is why I don't think that it's going to last very long. It can't, because again, along with poverty, you're going to have gangs. You're going to have people trying to find other ways to get by, which means there's going to be a lot of drugs. And here's the thing. All those women have to do is look at the women and go to Colombia, go to parts of Brazil, and better yet, go to Mexico. Go to the impoverished parts of Mexico. See how the women and men live there. A lot of them live in constant terror. The cartels run the country. And so all you're going to do is, in Korea, you're going to put the country in a state where a lot of the criminals are going to start running certain areas. on that day, those women are definitely going to need a man, because if they're complaining now about men who they care about abusing them, what do you think the gangbangers and the drug dealers and the criminals in those countries, what do you think they're going to do when they come in like if you're in their territory, and at this point they're in the life of crime. And the thing is, and I hate to really say this, but one of the, there's a term called the transport bros, the men who engage in transporting women and that kind of thing. If the criminals there see there's a market in transporting women, you're going to see a whole lot of that take place in Korea, because there's going to be a lot of frustrated men there. And if they can't get it one way, and again, I'm not endorsing this. No one should be endorsing this, but that's going to happen. It's going to become big business in that country, unfortunately. So what I'm saying is, they're going to start creating an environment that's going to not just harm men, it's also going to harm a lot of women. Because like I said, it's going to harm a lot of women. And again, if you live in a poverty-stricken area where there's crime going on, there's shootings and that kind of thing, as Andrew Tate has said, when there's times of war, men and women generally revert back to their gender roles. Men stay outside the house. They protect what's going on. They're hunter and gathering, and the women stay in the house where they're protected. Those women who are rebelling now, they could do that now while the men are not, while the men are still sane. They still have some women that they can savage. They still have the opportunity to travel and find, wives and that kind of thing. But if it gets to a point where they can't do that, you're going to see a whole nother side of men. And those women are going to wish those men were those caring, men that support them and want to have marriages and that kind of thing, because because at that point, when there's a lot of crime and violence, women naturally, a lot of them are going to want somebody to protect them. So they're going to want these men to come and protect them. But you kind of how it is now in the States, where like a lot of men are saying, well, if you're not my wife, why should I protect you? And a lot of those men there, if you feel like you're their equal and you're vowing not to do anything with them, then unfortunately, you pretty much saying, I don't want your covering, I'll toughen it out on my own. And that'll work until you deal with, like I said, there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of crazy men at that time. Some of them that do the R word, some of them that sell drugs, some of them that are with the pimping and all that. All those men are going to still be there. They're not going to go away. You just kind of made the situation even worse, so that whole, it's going to be more of like a cesspool developing there. And a lot of women there are going to want protection, which is why I keep saying that even in countries like Brazil or Colombia, women there can't really say, I don't need a man, because there's so much violence and crime there that you're going to need a man to protect you. Here's the other thing. People will say, well, they have the police. Keep in mind that the police, they make a certain amount now, but if they keep taking money if they pretty much lower the value of their wages through this, because now they got to pay for all these elderly people. At some point, you do understand that just like in Mexico or Colombia, these criminals can pay off the police officers because they don't make that much. So you're going to push them to a point where they don't have that, where the police have to find side hustles to make money, and all it's going to take is the criminals start paying these people off. Then really now you got the same problem in Colombia, where a lot of times, I hate to say this, but I say, like, if you wind up getting robbed or your cell phone taken or something like that, good luck trying to get the police to go try to find it or try to crack down on people that have done this. In many cases, I think the conviction rate for murder is very low. Basically what I'm saying is people get away with crime all the time there. That's all that's going to take place in Korea when people try to make the extra money that they can't make because they have to pay all these extra taxes. So what I'm saying is, eventually this is going to implode on itself. Like it can't work. It can't work for the long term. The only way they would have to be able to do it, they have to actually get all the men to actually believe into this and want to go towards this. And the men are not going to have it, especially if they're talking about this country has so much misogyny. And just recently, they had just got a new president that they said was kind of like Trump. It's like the Korean version of Trump. And he was there, and he pretty much was he was against a lot of these feminist policies. And I think he's more like the right wing edge or whatever. But either way, he's coming in to undo a lot of the stuff that's taking place. Like, I mean, at some point, like I think that just what they're gonna do is they're just gonna start cracking. If they can't fix this void through like immigration or that kind of thing, then they're probably just gonna start cracking down on this. And yeah, put it this way, yeah, they're gonna eventually they're gonna work against this. Probably similar to some of the things that China does to keep their like people in place. But either way, all that's going to really happen is they're going to get a strong leader that comes in there, probably right wing or something like that. It's going to crack down on a lot of this. I don't think it's going to last very long. I don't. I think, and as I said before, this really works to the destruction. As we've been trying to tell a lot of women in general, this kind of goes against your nature in general. I mean, really, what men really are trying to do is we're trying to work, build a family with you so that when you do get older, we have children. The man has already, worked hard enough with his pension so that we can just retire with ease. But instead, they would rather just go against their nature and fight all this and just die kind of in poverty. Or like Kevin Samuels would say, buy a dog and die alone. I mean, that's really the end goal. That's really the end for a lot of these women, is that they're going to wind up dying alone. And in this case, they don't have enough to really, I mean, because while Korea has a little bit more money than a lot of the Asian countries there, they don't have enough where, like, by the time people are 50, they have enough just to retire and live off the rest of their lives. So that being said, a lot of these women are truly going to die alone, because at that age, men are not checking for you at 50. They're not looking for you. Most of those men, especially the ones, if they do have their retirement, they're looking for younger women. They're not going to be checking for these women. So, I mean, it's just really unfortunate that they're going to put themselves in a position where, like, where they're just going to wind up being homeless, elderly, falling apart in poverty, barely getting by, living in slums, living in crime-infested slums, because it's only going to increase the crime as wages stay stagnant, but the cost of everything goes up, taxes go up. That's all that's going to happen. So it's only making things worse for them. The only way, like I said, they can curb this is possibly by bringing in immigrants. But at some point, you see all these countries now trying to draw in immigrants. I mean, there's only going to be so much immigration that you can bring in. So at some point, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to, like, change the culture there a little bit. I mean, which is kind of, to some degree, a little good for, I guess, passport bros, in that there will be so many countries vouching for us to come to their countries because they need immigrants. So for a lot of the brothers listening of all colors, probably soon, South Korea probably begging you to come there, live there, set up shop, have babies, and that kind of thing. Even though probably, you probably gonna have to grab a woman from, you probably have to bring, settle in Korea, but dating maybe in that area, maybe in the Philippines, Thailand, bring your Thai wife to Korea, set up shop there. But in many cases, I mean, that's all I can say about that. So, but yeah, that's really what I wanted to get to on this. I just thought it was a very, very interesting topic. And the name of this group is called the 4Bs. You can look this up. This is very, I didn't know it got this bad. I did hear about the low fertility rate in Korea, and also learned that this is starting to happen in Japan. But I think this is just foreshadowing to what could happen in the United States if feminism just completely went out of control. But I think with Kevin Samuels, with the Passport Bros, and with all the red pill content out there, I think that the men together, I think we've kind of at least shown a lot of women here what could potentially happen if they decide to continue on this route. And we've kind of, like, for the most part, most men have kind of found ways to get around it, whether they become like MGTOW or they become like a passport bro. So for right now, I think we've kind of put a Band-Aid on it by doing that, by, doing like the passport bro thing. But if it continues, because I did hear that, like, marriage in general is down across the board. But and as I said, I think there were more single men than there were, like, single women or that kind of thing. But however, at least I would say at least those women are having babies. It might, unfortunately, it's going to be by like a Pookie, Ray Ray, or a guy who is like a Chad or Tyrone who has several women or something like that. But at least they're still dating men. It hasn't got to the point of where it is in Korea where they're talking about vowing not to deal with them, at all, which is just insane. Because the question came up, well, what happens when you get on a job with a man? Are you going to be friends with him? And what happens when you meet a woman who wants to be married? Are you going to be friends with that woman? So she's kind of against your ideology. It just kind of puts up a weird dynamic. And I want to say it was South Korea that they were very hard on a lot of the single mothers there and that kind of thing. So I'm curious to figure out if a lot of these women are probably single mothers. Maybe they're upset with the way the society is, but I don't know. But I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to keep this video too long, but that was my whole spill and thoughts about the whole situation. But you guys tell me what you think about the four Bs group and their policies of the four no's, which is no dating, no sex, no babies, and no marriage with men. What do you think about this? What do you think is going to happen to the movement? Do you think it's possible it could happen in America? What do you think the end goal is? Where do you think this is going to be headed? Like, how do you think all this is going to end? Tell me what you think in the comments. Please hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell. And until next time, this is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, signing off.